Alrighty, I'm coming to you with another shoe review, and don't at me for the hair. I just decided I wanted to be a little bit girlier today than my short hair, and I put on my wig that I use for the days that I'm feeling like just poor self-esteem. So today I'm doing a shoe review on the Altra Torin 4.5 Plush. Now, as many of you may know, if anybody is watching this, this is an older rendition of a shoe. Unfortunately, people really liked this shoe and have not liked the newer rendition so much. In fact, there's a girl in my running group who keeps saying, like, when are they coming out with the next version? Because I hate the 5s. The 5s suck. I miss the 4.5 Plush. I guess they made some very minor differences with the actual collar as well as the tongue, and a lot of people did not like the changes that were made, so they went and bought up a ton of this shoe so that they could get through to the next rendition where hopefully those things will be fixed. So there aren't a ton of these available. However, part of the reason I'm wearing a wig today is because sometimes you want to be more girly and sometimes you don't really give a darn. If you really liked this shoe, here's a trick. If you haven't already done this, look at the men's versions, because men's sizes are a 1.5 size difference. So for example, if you're like my friend at my running group and you really wanted to get another one of these guys, you're not gonna be able to get this colorway, unfortunately, but you can find the men's version in a size 8.5. If you're a size 10 in women's, that's an 8.5 in men's. If you're a size 9.5 like I am in women's, that's a size 8 in men's. And you actually can still find those. I found them for about $139.95 online. Kind of boring colorways on the men's versions, unfortunately, but you know what? If you really loved the shoe and you want to be running in it, who cares? But anyway, this shoe, couple details about it. We're going to go over some specs. I have not found many of this actual shoe and colorway available anymore at all, unless you're really lucky and find them used and lightly used online. Price ranges are, as a result, not very helpful, because honestly, I found used ones as low as $50 and I found new ones as low as $140. However, the sizes were extremely limited. They only had new ones in like size 6.5 in women's that I found, or size like 11.5 in women's. So like the extreme ends of the spectrum where most people don't tend to have that foot size. So they still got them hanging around in warehouses somewhere. Like I mentioned, there had been quite a few complaints about the 5s. So if you liked this shoe, do not immediately assume that you can just go ahead and buy the Torin 5 Plush, because it is not necessarily the same shoe. They made some changes that were not received well by a lot of people. Drop on this shoe, 0 drop as always with Altra. I'm pretty sure Altra doesn't make any that are not 0 drop. That's just kind of their claim to fame. Stack height I was able to find on the website says 28 millimeters. I don't know if that varies between men's and women's. I looked up the women's ones. With that, what's nice about the shoe is it's on the kind of lighter road side. It's not like super light, but it's reasonably light, which is nice. I weighed it in at 235 grams or 8.3 ounces, which is not bad. It's a neutral shoe, pretty twisty, has lots of like flexibility and stuff, which is nice. The cushion is really nice and soft underfoot, which is what makes it good for longer distance runs. If you are used to 0 drop, please don't do what I did and screw up your calves and give yourself shin splints and give yourself Achilles tendon issues by jumping into 0 drops because you got all gung-ho reading, what was it? What was the book? Born to Run. That's the book. I had to like stop for a second and think of it. But I got all gung-ho into 0 drop and then screwed up my shins and my Achilles tendons and my calves because I did not transition properly. So if you're gonna do zero drop and you're not used to zero drop, please transition very slowly. Start by just walking in them and then maybe add like a little bit of running in them each week for a while until you build up to your normal mileage. Err on the side of caution. The slower the better when it comes to transitioning to zero drop. Anyway, I think I was talking about the cushioning before on this shoe. It is a very plush. There's a reason why plush is in the title. It's plush, but the stack height isn't particularly high, which is really, really nice as far as adding some stability, because honestly, the shoe isn't very stable, even with the lower stack height. I cannot imagine if it had a higher stack height and this amount of like softness to the foam, it would be borderline dangerous to run in, because this is not so great for cornering, in my opinion, from my experience. But if you're doing like long straight runs or just like minor curves in a loop, this guy is great. Outsole rubber, this is what the outsole rubber is looking like. This has about 58 miles on it, according to my tracking. As you can see, there is actually starting to be some wear here in the midfoot. You can see where the lines are dissipating on the track, and that's where you can see the wear. Also, there's like some little chunks missing out of the foam right here where I've obviously scuffed it against some things. And that's that. The upper is still looking really good. There's a little bit of wear in a couple spots where it's getting a little frayed, but not bad. Heel counter is not particularly stiff in this shoe. It does have a good lockdown as a result of the way that they've done the lacing system and stuff, which is important for Altras because they have so much extra toe space. If you don't get a good lockdown and you've got that extra toe space, you're just gonna be sliding around in there, which is not good. I'm starting to ramble, so we're gonna move on to pros and cons. And as I said in my previous video, I do cons first. I know that's a little unpopular, but I prefer to erase the bad stuff with the good stuff instead of erasing the good stuff with the bad stuff. So we're gonna start with the cons. Like I showed you here, we got 58 miles and the tread is already starting to kind of suffer a little bit. On a lot of my other shoes, I put 58, 60, 75 miles in it and I'm still not seeing any wear on the tread. The outsole rubber is not the most resilient on this shoe. In fact, I've been noticing that Altra has been having a little bit of a problem with that on a lot of their shoes, unfortunately. My hubby, in fact, has very similar tread to this on his. He has the Riviera 5s, I think. I don't know, but I got them. And the outsole rubber must have devolved since this shoe that I got like 2 years ago, year and a half ago, or whatever. The fact that I only have 58 miles on it tells you that I couldn't do zero drop very long. But his very similar like tread pattern on the Rivieras, and he only walked, I think, and he only walks, he doesn't really run for the most part. Sometimes he'll do a couple little intervals when we're out on a walk, but not much, like maybe 30 seconds to a minute at a time. And I think he only put maybe 30 miles on his, and the tread was completely flat here. And at first I thought, oh, well, he must be scuffing his feet when we're walking or something, because that does not make sense to only have been walking and already destroyed your tread. So I started watching him when he'd walk. He doesn't scuff his feet. The tread was just that bad. The outsole rubber was just that not durable. Altra has not been doing great on that, at least on their road shoes. This is a road shoe. I will be doing a review on the Altra Timp 2s here shortly, and I have a much better review as far as like my opinion on it for that shoe. However, the outsole rubber is wearing down. However, that one is at about 74 miles, but still I wouldn't expect to see that much wear on a trail shoe that's supposed to last for a long time. But anyway, I'm not wild about Altra's outsole rubber. Their Lone Peaks seem to be a little better. I don't know if they have a different outsole rubber on the Lone Peaks, or it's just that they have so much more of it on the Lone Peaks. But those seem to hold up a little bit better. Again, exercise extreme caution if you're going to zero drop, because the Lone Peaks in particular are not forgiving. But these guys are a little bit more forgiving. I would say that if you are transitioning to zero drop, and you're not used to it, start off with one of the more cushioned zero drops and then maybe work your way down. That way your feet have a chance to get used to the additional stressors and such that comes with that. As I mentioned before, the shoe is not particularly stable because of how soft it is and because of how neutral and bendy it is. Like, it's just a really flexible, nice shoe. I wouldn't say that with the mileage on it, it's gotten more flexible. This is just how flexible the shoe is. Last quick little cons that I could think of for this shoe is just that, like I mentioned, not many available of this particular rendition of the shoe out there anymore. People tended to swipe them up when the new model came out, the 5s, and they found out they didn't like it. So maybe try out the 5s, maybe it works for you. What most people were complaining about that I've talked to about this shoe and the new rendition is that the heel collar goes just a hair taller on the 5s than they did on the 4.5s, and that rubs not nicely on their ankle. The other thing they were complaining about is the new tongue on the 5s just is not nice on the top of the foot, and the laces just cut into their foot. I don't know why that is though, because I've looked at that shoe and it looks very similar, just very little difference, but apparently it seems to make a difference to people. On to the pros for this shoe. Biggest pro that is the reason I actually got this shoe originally when I was starting to get Altras is breathability. I got this in the summer and I was having a problem with some of my other Altras just not being very breathable, mainly because they were trail shoes. And trail shoes generally just aren't going to be quite as breathable in design as the road shoes, just for foot protection purposes and the fact that you're usually dealing with more adverse conditions, so you don't need as breathable of a shoe for trail running as you do for road. However, super breathable. I love the mesh upper. That's one of the things that people are really sad about the fact that the new rendition of this shoe isn't as good, is that they really liked the upper on the shoe. The upper is just very nice, very comfortable, great lockdown across it, even though, like, it's funny because as you can see, I've washed this shoe a couple of times. Well, maybe you can't see that, but you can see that, like, it's kind of lost its shape a little bit over the time. However, the lockdown is still great on this shoe. I basically only use this shoe as a gym shoe and a walking shoe now because I'm not running in zero drop anymore, but I still like this shoe for those purposes. Obviously, like I mentioned, with the plushness of the shoe, it's very comfortable. That's another pro to this shoe. Extremely comfortable, very good for long runs. In fact, I think the longest run I ever did in this shoe was 11 miles, which is actually pretty much the longest I've ever run. I've been working on getting my miles up slowly but surely and avoiding injury. But anyway, and I remember at the end of that run thinking I could keep going. Like, I was tempted to keep going. I felt good. My legs felt good. My feet felt good. At the time, that was really unusual for me because I was very prone to blisters, especially on the arch of my right foot. I was getting those in pretty much any time I went for a run longer than 6 miles. I would end up with another blister on the right side of my foot, on my right foot, on the arch, like right below my toe box. And I don't know why to this day. Hasn't been reoccurring, but it was really bad. And these did not have that issue. And these were the only shoe in my arsenal of like probably 7 shoes that did not have that issue on a run longer than 6 miles at the time. Extremely comfortable, extremely breathable, very nice for summer running. It was just really great for that. Last pro I have, and this is a pro that's going to apply to pretty much all Altras, is toe room. As you might be able to tell, I don't know if you can tell on here, Altras look a little funky. They kind of got a clown shoe thing going, but that's because they intentionally have this very wide toe box so that your toes have room to display. Here's one thing I do really like about the fact that I did do Altras for a while, pretty much exclusively. Even though it screwed up my calves and stuff because I didn't transition properly to the zero drop. My toes used to all touch each other with all the shoes that I used to have. They were like this. And then after wearing Altras for a while exclusively, like all my toes now naturally when I'm barefoot are like this, which tells me that my shoes were literally crushing my toes. I was just doing like quite literally like Chinese foot bondage, like with my shoes, until I switched to Altras for a bit. That allowed my toes to splay, and then once my toes were properly like lining up and actually spreading on a normal basis just from being allowed to, I was able to determine what size shoe I should actually be wearing properly without that interfering with it. So that's a really nice thing. If you find that your feet feel confined and crushed all the time, check out Altra shoes because they are great for that. My mom really loves them. In fact, I'm probably going to be giving these shoes as well as my other Altras to my mom because she walks and they don't bother her. She's used to zero drop. She doesn't run, and I can't run in them. It feels like a waste for me to just have them in my closet when I don't use them for anything other than walking at this point. But that's pretty much it for that. We've gone over pros, we've gone over cons. Unfortunately, this is an older rendition of a shoe. However, if you are flexible in not caring about if it's a men's shoe or a women's shoe, you may in fact still be able to find your size in this shoe. You just got to do a little bit of digging. And that's pretty much it for that. I don't know, I'm running out of things to say, and also I'm realizing I'm being loud while somebody's trying to sleep in the other room. So I'm gonna let you go. You guys have a great day. Hopefully this was interesting to some degree, even though I'm rambling for no reason, and helpful to some degree as well. Alrighty, bye-bye.